Chapter 1, The Betrayal. Commander Elias Voss stood at the bridge of the UN Resolute, hands clasped behind his back. Through the viewport, the planet Valkyria 7 loomed below, a world of violet oceans and silver-hued forests, the homeworld of the Zalvan Imperium. Humanity's first diplomatic meeting with an elder alien race had finally arrived. Final approach, Commander, reported Lieutenant Arden, his tactical officer. The man's voice was steady, but Voss caught the flicker of unease in his eyes. Maintain course. Open a channel, Voss ordered. The holoscreen flickered to life, revealing High Minister Zelvaris, tall, slender, his deep blue skin shimmering under the golden lights of his chamber. His silver eyes held no warmth, only the calculating gaze of someone who had already decided the worth of his guest. Commander Voss, Zelvaris said smoothly. On behalf of the Zalvan Imperium, welcome. We recognize humanity's rise and wish for peaceful discourse. Voss nodded. We appreciate the opportunity, High Minister. Humanity seeks friendship, not conflict. Zelvaris inclined his head, the ghost of a smile curling at his lips. A noble sentiment. The connection ended. Voss exhaled slowly. Something felt off. The Zalvan's reputation preceded them, wise, ancient, and impossibly advanced. Yet, there was a coldness beneath their civility, a deliberate restraint. Sir, Arden muttered, stepping closer. I don't like this. The way they speak, their tone, it's too polished. Too controlled. Voss shared his concern but kept his voice level. Stay sharp. But for now, we proceed. The landing was seamless. A delegation of 12 humans, including scientists, diplomats, and military personnel, stepped onto the marble-like surface of the Zalvan capital's landing platform. Towering spires stretched into the sky, their architecture flowing like liquid metal, defying gravity itself. The Zalvans stood in formation, their uniforms pristine, their expressions unreadable. Zelvaris greeted them personally, flanked by his advisors. Your journey must have been arduous. Please, allow us to extend our hospitality. The delegation was led into the Grand Hall of Concordance, where crystalline pillars hummed with energy. Servants moved in synchronized precision, offering food and drink. It was an elaborate display, too elaborate. Voss sat opposite Zelvaris at a long obsidian table. Let's speak plainly, Minister. What future do you see between our species? Zelvaris tapped his fingers together. Your people are young, ambitious, rapid in growth. He leaned forward slightly. That rapidity unsettles some. Voss raised an eyebrow. Are you among them? Zelvaris' smile didn't reach his eyes. I am a pragmatist, Commander. Potential unchecked leads to instability. It is our duty to ensure balance. A chill crawled down Voss's spine. He chose his next words carefully. Humanity has no intention of disrupting balance. We only seek cooperation. Zelvaris inclined his head. Then let us discuss terms. Hours passed in careful negotiation. The Zalvans offered limited trade, minor technological exchanges, and access to shared space, on restrictive terms. It was diplomacy wrapped in chains. As discussions stretched on, Lieutenant Arden discreetly approached Voss, whispering urgently. Sir, we've intercepted a transmission. Voss's stomach tightened. From who? Arden hesitated. Zalvan military channels. Their fleet is mobilizing. Dozens of ships moving into attack formation, surrounding the Resolute. Voss kept his expression neutral, though his pulse thundered. This was never about diplomacy. This was an execution. He looked at Zelvaris, who was still speaking, utterly composed. They had smiled at humanity's arrival while readying the knife. Voss made a decision. We need to leave. Now. Standing abruptly, he forced a polite expression. High Minister, we appreciate your time. We will return to discuss finer details at a later date. Zelvaris' expression didn't change, but there was an unmistakable shift in the air. "Leaving so soon, Commander?" Voss didn't rise to the bait. "Urgent matters require our attention." For a fraction of a second, Zelvares hesitated. Then he gave a slow nod. "Very well. I hope you have a safe return." Voss and his team moved quickly but calmly through the corridors. The moment they stepped onto the landing platform, alarms blared. Arden's voice was sharp in his earpiece. "Sir, the fleet is locking weapons on the Resolute. They're preparing to fire." "Damn it," Voss muttered. "Get us out of here." The human delegation sprinted toward their shuttle. Zalvan guards moved to intercept. Voss didn't hesitate. He drew his sidearm. "Stand down." The guards didn't listen. A single shot rang out. Arden had fired first, dropping the lead guard. "Move!" Voss barked. Gunfire erupted as they rushed onto the shuttle. Explosions rocked the platform. The Zalvans had activated planetary defenses. "Arden, get us airborne!" Voss shouted, sealing the hatch as the shuttle lifted violently into the sky. Through the viewport, he saw the UEN Resolute under siege, energy beams slamming into its shields, fighters swarming like vultures. Voss grabbed the comms. "Captain Dorn! Get the ship out of here!" Dorn's voice crackled through. "We're taking heavy fire. Shields at 60%. Voss clenched his jaw. "Hold the line. We're coming." The shuttle pierced the atmosphere, dodging laser fire. In the chaos, a Zalvan fighter locked onto them. "Missile incoming!" Arden shouted. Voss made a split-second call. "Deploy countermeasures." A burst of flares erupted, throwing the missile off course. The shuttle spiraled into the Resolute's hangar just as the ship took another brutal hit. Voss stormed onto the bridge. "Status?" Dorn's face was grim. "They want us dead, Commander." Voss turned to the viewport. Zalvan dreadnoughts loomed, weapons primed. This was not an accident. This was a purge. His voice was cold steel. Then they'll get their war. Humanity's first contact had been peaceful. Their response would not be. Chapter 2, Humanity's Counterattack. The UEN Resolute shook as another blast slammed into its shields. Red warning lights bathed the bridge in an eerie glow. Sirens blared, drowning out the voices of the crew. Commander Elias Voss gripped the railing as he steadied himself. "Damage report." Captain Dorn, the ship's seasoned officer, shouted over the chaos. "Shields at 40%. We won't last long at this rate." Voss turned to Lieutenant Arden, his tactical officer. "Weapon status?" Arden's face was grim. "Zalvan ships outgun us 10-1, sir. They're using graviton disruptors, our hull won't hold if those break through." Voss's mind raced. They had to escape or fight back. A Zalvan battleship loomed ahead, its sleek, silver form shifting position to block their retreat. More warships swarmed, tightening the net. The Zalvans hadn't expected a counterattack. They thought humanity would fold. They had miscalculated. Voss locked eyes with Arden. "We need a weakness. Fast." Arden's fingers flew across the console, scanning enemy formations. His eyes flickered with realization. "Sir." Zalvan ships use an adaptive shielding system. It phases between energy wavelengths to counter incoming attacks. But, he pointed to the data feed. "There's a pattern. A 2-second delay between shifts." Voss understood instantly. "That's our window." He turned to Dorn. "We target the moment their shields shift. Fire everything we've got." Dorn hesitated. "Sir, that's a narrow window." Voss's voice was sharp. "Then we don't miss." Dorn nodded and barked orders. "Gunners, prepare for synchronized fire." The Zalvan flagship advanced, its weapon banks glowing with lethal energy. Voss's fingers curled into a fist. "Hold! Hold!" The enemy ship's shields flickered. Fire! The Resolute unleashed a barrage, rail guns, plasma cannons, and torpedoes, all converging on the precise moment of shield transition. The Zalvan flagship shuddered as the blasts tore into its hull. Explosions ruptured its structure, venting debris and fire into space. A moment of stunned silence followed. The Zalvans hadn't expected a single human ship to take down one of their own. Then the comms erupted. Enemy vessels adjusted their formations, hesitating. Voss pressed the advantage. Push forward. Flank their formation. The Resolute pivoted sharply, cutting between the Zalvan ships. Lasers streaked past as the crew executed high-speed evasive maneuvers. Human ingenuity against Zalvan precision. Another Zalvan ship tried to reposition, but Arden had already calculated the next strike. Hit them now! A torpedo pierced the exposed reactor core, the ship detonated in a chain reaction, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Voss's pulse pounded. They were turning the tide. Inside the Zalvan command vessel, High Minister Zelvaris stood motionless, watching the impossible unfold. His ship's holographic display flickered with alerts. Human weapons had breached their defenses. An aide approached, voice unsteady. "Minister, the humans are adapting." "They're..." Zelvaris raised a hand, silencing him. His silver eyes narrowed. "They fight like cornered predators," he murmured. "But they do not understand their place." He turned to his warship commanders. "Enough toying with them. End this." The Zalvan fleet shifted into an overwhelming assault pattern, their firepower intensifying. The net tightened again. Back on the Resolute. The ship lurched violently as enemy weapons struck its side. Consoles sparked, and a rupture tore through Deck 4. "We're losing structural integrity," a crew member shouted. Voss clenched his jaw. The Zalvans were done holding back. "Options," he demanded. Arden's expression was dark. "We can't outrun them. And we can't hold out much longer." Voss knew what had to be done. "Then we take one last shot." He turned to Dorn. "Ram their command vessel." Dorn's eyes widened. "Sir, that's suicide." Voss's voice was unwavering. "Not if we do it right. Bring us in fast, target their bridge at point-blank range." Arden's fingers moved across the console. "If we overload the railguns and fire just before impact, we might breach their core." Voss nodded. "No hesitation. No retreat." Dorn swallowed hard. Then he issued the order. The Resolute surged forward, thrusters burning at full power. The Zalvan command vessel loomed ahead, its weapons cycling up for a kill shot. The moment stretched, suspended in tension. Voss gripped the railing. Fire! The ship's railguns roared, hurling explosive rounds directly at the Zalvan bridge. The shots tore through the hull, ripping apart the control center in a blinding explosion. The enemy ship veered sharply, its systems failing. The Zalvan formation broke apart in disarray. Victory. For now. The battlefield fell silent. The Zalvan fleet, leaderless and rattled, pulled back. They weren't used to losing. Voss exhaled slowly. "Status?" Arden scanned the readings. "We're alive." "Barely." The Resolute was battered, her hull scarred, her crew exhausted, but they had done the impossible. A message came through. Earth had received their distress call. Reinforcements were en route. Voss gazed out at the retreating Zalvan fleet. Humanity's first contact had been peaceful. Their response had not been. Chapter 3, The Reckoning. The UEN Resolute drifted in the void, battered but unbroken. Its hull bore deep scars from the battle, fractures running along the plating like the wounds of a warrior who had walked away from death itself. Smoke curled from ruined sections, and emergency lights pulsed in a rhythmic red glow. Commander Elias Voss stood on the bridge, his uniform torn at the sleeve, a gash on his forehead where shrapnel had cut through during the last Zalvan strike. The battle was over. The Zalvan fleet had withdrawn, their arrogance shattered by the realization that humanity would not kneel. But this was not over. "Status?" Voss asked, his voice hoarse but steady. Lieutenant Arden tapped at his flickering console. "Hull integrity is at 30%. Reactor is stable but running hot. We've lost 2 railgun batteries, and long-range comms are spotty." He paused, then added grimly, "Casualty count is coming in." Voss braced himself. He had seen men and women die before, but it never got easier. 43 dead. Over 100 wounded, Arden reported. Medical bays are overloaded. We're sealing off compromised sections to maintain pressure. Voss exhaled slowly, gripping the railing. "Get me Earth. Now." Arden's hands moved swiftly over the damaged systems, rerouting power. The distress signal had reached the Sol system, now it was time for humanity to answer. A crackle filled the bridge speakers. Then, a voice, Admiral Renata Caldon of the UEN First Fleet. "Resolute, this is UEN Dauntless. We received your transmission. Reinforcements are 10 minutes out." "Status?" Voss straightened. "Survived an unprovoked attack by the Zalvan Imperium. Their fleet outnumbered us 10-1. We held." His voice hardened. "But they'll be back." A brief silence. Then Caldon's voice came through, sharp as steel. "Understood. Hold position. The fleet is coming." Voss clenched his fists. The war had begun. Inside the Zalvan Council chamber, High Minister Zelvaris stood before the gathered elders of the Imperium, his silver eyes dark with fury. The attack had failed. The council chamber, a vast hall lined with floating crystal monoliths, hummed with whispers of doubt. Humanity was supposed to be insignificant, an emerging species still finding its place in the stars. Yet, they had fought like apex predators, crippling one of the Imperium's most powerful fleets. An elder, his features lined with age, regarded Zelvaris coldly. "You assured us that the humans would be neutralized quickly. Instead, they crippled one of our dreadnoughts and forced our fleet into retreat. Explain yourself." Zelvaris clenched his jaw. Their tactics were unexpected. Their resilience, underestimated. He took a measured breath. "But this is not over." Another counselor, a female with dark indigo skin, narrowed her eyes. "The humans have sent for reinforcements. We risk escalation beyond control." Zelvaris' gaze hardened. "It is already beyond control." He stepped forward. "We tried diplomacy, they came with hidden fangs. We tested their limits, they shattered ours. They do not know their place. We must remind them." The elders exchanged glances. Then, one of them, an aged strategist with scars from wars long past, spoke. "If we proceed, we commit to war. Are you prepared for that, High Minister?" Zelvaris did not hesitate. "Yes." The council chamber fell into silence. Then, one by one, the elders nodded. The decision was made. The arrival of the First Fleet. The stars shimmered and bent as dozens of ships burst into real space, exiting FTL at the edge of the Valkyria 7 system. The UEN First Fleet had arrived. Flagship UEN Dauntless, a behemoth of human engineering, led the formation. Alongside it, battlecruisers, destroyers, and strike frigates spread into combat formations, their weapons primed. On the Resolute's bridge, Voss let out a breath. The reinforcements had arrived in time. Admiral Caldon's face appeared on screen. "Commander Voss, we have visual on your position." "Status?" Voss's voice was edged with determination. "Zalvan forces retreated, but they won't stay gone for long. Their leadership won't accept this loss." Caldon nodded, her sharp features set in stone. "Then we take the fight to them." She turned to her officers. "Deploy formations. If the Zalvans return, we will not wait for their first strike. We will end this." The Zalvans return. The warning came almost instantly. Multiple Zalvan signatures appeared on sensors. Arden's voice was tight. "We've got incoming. A full armada. Bigger than before." The Zalvan Imperium had returned, prepared for total war. Zelvaris's voice boomed through the comms, cold and calculated. "Humanity. You defied the natural order once. You will not do so again." Voss smiled grimly. "You should have finished the job when you had the chance." The battle began in a violent clash of firepower. The Dauntless led the charge, its massive railguns firing hypervelocity slugs that tore through Zalvan shields. Cruisers flanked the enemy, unleashing salvos of missiles that detonated in blinding explosions. But the Zalvans were formidable. Their ships moved with surgical precision, their advanced weapons cutting through human defenses. Energy beams lanced through space, forcing human vessels to constantly adapt. The Resolute, still damaged but unrelenting, maneuvered through the chaos, targeting vulnerable points. Arden fired a plasma salvo at a Zalvan warship's thrusters, sending it into an uncontrolled spin before it was annihilated by a destroyer's broadside cannons. But the tide was shifting. Despite their discipline, the Zalvans hesitated. They had expected humans to fight, but not like this. For the first time in centuries, they faced an enemy who did not fight for conquest, power, or empire. They fought for survival. For revenge. For humanity. And they were winning. The breaking point. Zelvaris watched the battle unfold in disbelief. The humans refused to break. He had made a mistake. A fatal one. "Fall back," he ordered, voice tight. "Withdraw the fleet." The Zalvan ships began retreating, vanishing into the void one by one. Voss stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching them go. His knuckles tightened. This was just the beginning. As the last Zalvan vessel disappeared into the darkness, Voss turned to Kaldun. "They'll come back." Kaldun's expression was unreadable. "And we'll be ready." Voss exhaled, gaze shifting to the endless stars. Humanity's first contact had been peaceful. Their response had not been. And their reckoning had only just begun.